Doctrine and Covenants 85 through 87. By the end of 1832, Joseph Smith had only been leading the organized church for a little over 2 years. Yet in that short time, he had begun to build a consecrated city of Zion in Missouri, sent missionaries across the country, opened a bishop's storehouse to support the saints, and had begun the monumental work of translating the Bible. And he wasn't even 30 years old yet. Between late November and the end of December 1832, Joseph recorded 3 major revelations, now Doctrine and Covenants 85, 86, and 87. Each section addresses a different kind of unrest, spiritual, doctrinal, and political. Together, these sections teach us how to stand firm in a crumbling world. Let's dive in. In the summer of 1832, Joseph and Newell K. Whitney made it home to Ohio in spite of broken legs and attempted poisonings, and Joseph settled back into the work of translating the Bible. In the midst of his work, Joseph and Newell made a somewhat hurried trip to New York and Boston in obedience to the Lord's command given back in Doctrine and Covenants 84. The hurry behind the trip was likely because Emma was very pregnant and could potentially give birth at any time. Keep in mind that Emma had given birth to her first son who did not survive childbirth 4 years earlier. Just the year before, Emma had given birth to twins, a boy and a girl, who had died the same day. You can imagine Emma and Joseph's worry as she approached this 4th delivery. Still, Joseph obeyed the Lord's command and went to the eastern states. As soon as their work was finished, Joseph and Newell returned to Kirtland on November 6th, just hours after Emma gave birth to her 4th child, Joseph Smith III. Miraculously, Emma was blessed that this child survived. What a joyful day for the Smiths. However, Joseph found that church leaders were concerned about the management of consecrated properties among the saints in Zion. Some of them refused to consecrate their property to the church as previously commanded. Other saints had received land without ever entering into consecration agreements. The law of Zion seemed to be unraveling before it had fully begun. Joseph wrote to William W. Phelps, an excerpt of which became Doctrine and Covenants 85, and it emphasized 2 things: the importance of keeping accurate records and the need for integrity in living the law of consecration. During a period when many sought the blessings of Zion without sacrificing for it, this revelation drew a clear line. Those whose names are not written in the book of the law of God will not receive an inheritance in Zion. With the birth of their new baby and Joseph's return from the eastern states, he and Emma settled into life in their rooms above the Newell K. Whitney store. Part of settling back into normal life was Joseph resuming work on the Bible translation. As Joseph worked on the Bible translation in December, he reviewed and revised earlier work he'd done on the New Testament. It seems likely he was reviewing Matthew 13, which contains the parable of the wheat and the tares, because as he was working, he received a revelation about the parable, now Doctrine and Covenants 86, that does something profound. It reverses the order in which the wheat and tares in this parable are gathered. In the King James Version, the tares are gathered first and burned. But in the Doctrine and Covenants 86 revelation, it's the wheat, the righteous who follow God, who are gathered first. This subtle shift reframed the parable of the wheat and tares as a reassurance rather than a warning. It was a promise that the Lord will gather his people before the final burning at his second coming. Almost 3 weeks later, on Christmas Day, Joseph received a surprisingly violent prophecy on what should have been a peaceful day. The United States had been in turmoil for some time. South Carolina had just declared that it would no longer follow federal tariff laws and was preparing to defy the government. President Andrew Jackson responded by sending troops to Charleston Harbor. Hundreds of miles away in Kirtland, Joseph Smith dictated what would become one of his most dramatic and specific prophecies, Section 87. The revelation foretold that war would begin in South Carolina, with the southern states opposing the northern ones, and that the death and misery of many souls would follow. It even references slaves rising up against their masters. What's striking is that within 2 months of this revelation, the crisis in South Carolina seemed to dissolve. A new tariff was passed, South Carolina backed down, and war was avoided. It seemed at first that this revelation and prophecy was not fulfilled. In fact, the prophecy wasn't published in the 1835 edition of the Doctrine and Covenants, and Joseph rarely spoke of it. But almost 30 years later, in 1861, the Civil War began exactly as the revelation described. in South Carolina, with the southern states opposing the northern ones, and with the death and misery of many souls following. Newspapers like the Philadelphia Sunday Mercury reprinted the prophecy with awe, asking, "Have we not had a prophet among us?" At the end of the prophecy on war, the Lord counseled, "Wherefore stand ye in holy places and be not moved until the day of the Lord come." As the world around them unraveled in civil unrest and spiritual apathy, the Lord reminded his people to stand firmly in their faith. These 3 sections might seem random, but they form a pattern. In just 1 month, Joseph received revelations addressing the struggles of establishing Zion, God's plan for the righteous in the last days, and the destructive events that were soon coming. In other words, these revelations are a call to each of us to follow the prophet in standing firm in holy places, no matter what is happening around us. And that's what's happening in Come Follow Me this week. Giveaway announcement. Hey, make sure that you are subscribed to this channel, because for the rest of 2025, from July through December, I am going to be giving away a $50 Amazon gift card to 1 subscriber every single month. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. Like and subscribe so that YouTube will share these videos with more people. And check out the Start Here app for daily Come Follow Me study prompts.